I want to ask you, I'm seeing this vote, we're seeing this vote through the lens of national security versus Abenomics here. I want you to unpackage these results. What do you think about this?
Thanks, Ramy. Well, I think your correspondent in Tokyo largely got it right. But if you take a step back, what you see is that the Japanese public really sought a safe haven in times of uncertainty. They've got North Korea to worry about. They've got the global economy to worry about, an unprecedented and different American presidency, and the rise of China. And when they looked around, they felt comfortable with the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. I think some of the voters were thinking ahead to the 2020 Olympics and wanting a steady hand there. Certainly, economically speaking, even though the Japanese economy remains sluggish, it is growing. There is a tightening employment market, and people feel largely comfortable. But at the end of the day, the big issue was simply there was no real alternative. The opposition was divided, it was confused, and so landing back where they started with Shinzo Abe made a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. I also saw an Asahi Shimbun poll saying that 51% of respondents last week said that they actually didn't want Shinzo Abe to stay in power, and yet here we are right now. Looking ahead, Mr. Abe also campaigned on saying that he wanted to revise the Japanese constitution from something that, from post-World War II has been pacifist. What do you think this has in terms of traction moving ahead?
Well, I think that Abe has a number of priorities ahead. One of them, clearly, and he's been straightforward about this, is amending the Constitution. But I suspect that this is not a place where he will rush. He needs to step very deliberately. There is a distinction that has some meaning between revising the Constitution and amending it. And what's important to recognize is that Shinzo Abe, certainly at this point, is not proposing to jettison Article 9, what makes theirs a peace constitution that renounces war and prohibits Japanese military from taking offensive operations. What he has been talking about, and of course he's hampered to some degree by the fact that he's in a coalition with the Komeito, a pacifist party. What he's been talking about is making an amendment to the existing language of the Constitution on augmentation that would essentially legitimize the reality that there is a standing Japanese military. It's called the Japan Self-Defense Force. Now, whether he feels that he's got the political backing to go half a step further and to codify in an augmentation of the Constitution, the idea that the Japanese military can do more than simply defend Japan if attacked, the so-called collective self-defense policy that his government has embraced, I think will be something that is not yet determined. Moreover, the idea of convening a constitutional referendum, something that presumably would have to happen if the Diet succeeded in the first half of next year in actually adopting an amendment, is a bit of an iffy proposition. You don't have to look any further than the Brexit vote in the UK to know that the best laid plans of thoughtful politicians can be upended by a referendum. Right.